I hesitate to deposit money in a bank. I am afraid I shall never dare to take it out again. When you go to confession and entrust your sins to the safekeeping of the priest, do you ever come back for them?
On today's market, we find a whole series of products deprived of their malignant property: coffee without caffeine, cream without fat, beer without alcohol, and the list goes on. What about virtual sex as sex without sex? The Colin Powell doctrine of warfare with no casualties, on our side, of course, as warfare without warfare.
War was my university. Everything has proceeded from there.
It only takes a politician believing in what he says for the others to stop believing him.
The abjection of our political situation is the only true challenge today. Only facing up to this situation in all its desperation can help us get out of it.
Governing today means giving acceptable signs of credibility. It is like advertising, and it is the same effect that is achieved: commitment to a scenario.
It's clear that the committee has agreed that your new policy is a really excellent plan, but in view of some of the doubts being expressed, may I propose that I recall that after careful consideration, the considered view of the committee was that while they considered that the proposal met with broad approval in principle, that some of the principles were sufficiently fundamental in principle and some of the considerations so complex and finely balanced in practice, that, in principle, it was proposed that the sensible and prudent practice would be to submit the proposal for more detailed consideration, laying stress on the essential continuity of the new proposal with existing principles, and the principle of the principal arguments, which the proposal proposes and propounds for their approval in principle.
I'm afraid you may be wasting your time.
Americans may have no identity, but they do have wonderful teeth.
What you have to do is enter the fiction of America, enter America as fiction. It is, indeed, on this fictive basis, that it dominates the world.
Interesting that he could separate fact from fantasy so quickly.
But they didn't know that.
I assure you, that no matter what significance you may hold for me, to the village and its committee, you are merely citizen.
Disneyland is presented as imaginary, in order to make us believe that the rest is real, whereas Los Angeles is no longer real, but belongs to the Hyperial Order, and to the Order of Simulation.
Santa Barbara is a paradise, Disneyland is a paradise, the US is a paradise. Paradise is just paradise. Mournful, monotonous, and superficial though it may be, it is paradise. There is no other.
Yes, the English-speaking nations can be said to include the USA.
The ultimate goal of radical politics is gradually to displace the limit of social exclusions, empowering the excluded agents' sexual and ethnic minorities, by creating marginal spaces in which they can articulate and question their identity. Radical politics thus becomes an endless mocking parody and provocation, a gradual process of re-identification in which there are not final victories and ultimate demarcations.
It's very cosmopolitan.
Some psychiatrists say it satisfies the desire for power.
Well, it's nice to have something to look forward to.
Perhaps the world's second worst crime is boredom. The first is being a bore.
Oh, I'm not so bad, once you get to know me.
Seduction is always more singular and sublime than sex, and it commands the higher price.
There is no aphrodisiac like innocence.
Never resist a sentence you like, in which language takes its own pleasure and in which, after having abused it for so long, you are stupefied by its innocence. Then perhaps the reason you're here is not so different from the reason I'm here.
An ordinary person wants to stop a major government policy. What can he do about it?
It only takes a politician believing in what he says for the others to stop believing him.
I'm only abolishing the department. Education and science will flourish.
It is always the same. Once you are liberated, you are forced to ask who you are.
The only way you're getting through this door is over my big dead ass.